TheCraftyGemini, and this is video number 4 in my Westchester Dolman top video sew-along. Alright, so in this video we're going to jump right into cutting out our pattern template pieces out of the fabric. You'll be happy to know, especially if you're a beginner, that all you need to cut out are 5 fabric pieces. From those 5 pieces, the front, the back, 2 sleeve bands, and a neckband strip of fabric, you'll be able to put together your Westchester Dolman top. So let's get right to it. Alright, so now let's get ready to cut out our pattern pieces for the front of our top and the back of our top out of our fabric. I'm cutting out the large, remember based on my measurements for the top part, and then I graded out to the extra large at the hips. And so for large and extra large, it says 1 2/3 yards. Okay, so you won't need not even 2 yards even if you do the 3X size. So less than 2 yards, you'll be good to go. Now, that's for the amount of fabric. We're going to cut out the front and the back, but remember that we also have to cut out the sleeve band and the neckband. So if you notice up here, I wrote you a little note that says that for the neckband, I want you to cut out 1 strip of fabric that measures 2 inches wide by 45 inches in length. Now, if you've ever made a knit top before, you know that 45 inches in length is way too long. I did that on purpose because when I get to that video in the sew-along, I'm going to show you how to measure using my curve runner, and then we're going to cut it down to size. But for those of you that are already prepping your pieces, I just gave you kind of a general number that's going to be way more, so you are obviously going to cut it down. Right now, I'm going to go over the fabric and how to lay out these pattern pieces so that we can cut them out. So I am going to be making the top for you in this video sew-along out of double brushed polyester fabric. This is the print that I'm using. It's this really pretty kind of rust and pink colored floral. I have the fabric folded pretty sides together, and this is oftentimes how the fabric will even come off of the bolt, but it's a general rule of thumb in garment sewing for you if you're cutting something through 2 layers to have it folded so that the pretty sides of the fabric are touching on the inside. If you really want to conserve fabric, because knits come in such wide widths of the fabric, this measures probably about 57 or 58 inches wide. I don't need to fold it exactly in half. Okay, so instead what you can do is kind of letting it go loose, draping it over your tabletop. You can do this on the floor, on the bed if you're going to be cutting it out with scissors or you don't have much space. And I'm just going to fold it, and then I'll bring this back. I grab it at the fold, wherever I folded it, for this first trial fold, and just let it lie flat like this. Perfect. Now, if you do it just a little bit, what you'll do is you'll place this on the fold, and when you put the sleeve part out, you see that I'm short there. If I go to cut here, this top edge of the fabric hasn't reached yet. So, I do it again, and now this time I'll fold it a little bit higher. And the idea is that you will fold it just enough to cut out your pattern piece size. And so what happens is instead of folding it fully in half, I have this nice solid chunk down here that I can use for all kinds of stuff. For sleeve bands of other projects, for neck bands, for full-on sleeves. I mean, you can do a lot with that chunk versus if I had it all the way up, you would cut the top out and you'd have narrower, smaller pieces that would be more kind of scrap pieces versus having a nice bigger chunk than that. So this is just a tip on how to cut your fabric pieces or your fabric templates out a little bit more efficiently. And now you can see that when I place the line, which is the center front here, right on the folded line, I have enough fabric so that if I cut around the edge of my template piece here, I will end up with the entire front. The idea is this fold is not going to be cut, so you're basically cutting out a mirror image of 1/2 of the front of your top. Does that make sense? So then we're going to get some of our weights, and I'm just going to scoot this all the way up. If I was doing this by myself without filming it, I would probably open the fabric up again and fold it up so that it ends right by the sleeve, because I really don't like these couple of inches of waist. But for this video right now, we're just going to leave it as is. Now you want to make sure that the edge of the template is right in line with that fold, and place pins or weights. You can get some really big heavy weights at the hardware store and just place some of them around enough to keep them in place. Now, if you are going to be using scissors to cut out your pattern pieces, then you can pin this, and then you would go in there with, your shears and cut all the way around it. What I like to do, of course, because I'm a quilter, is to cut it out with using my rotary cutter. And any size rotary cutter is going to work. This is just the one that I have right here handy to me. So I'm going to follow the edge and cut all the way around. This fold line stays there. You don't ever want to cut. Smooth out your pattern template, and then we're going to cut around it. All right, so the front is done. And you'll see what happens with that fold line is that it's symmetrical. So one side will be for your right arm and the other side for your left arm. And there you have the full front of what the top is going to be. So we'll set this one aside and we will move our fabric over so we can repeat the exact same cut to the back piece of our template. Now for the back, it's going to be the same thing. Make sure that you have it oriented so that the place on fold mark is on the fold of your fabric down here. So the grain line runs along the lengthwise grain. The degree of greatest stretch runs perpendicular to the selvage. So you have to have it oriented like this, especially if you're working with a fabric that doesn't have equal amounts of stretch in both directions. Whatever the stretchiest dimension is, you always want it going left to right or horizontal across your body because it needs to go around the circumference of bust, waist, and hip, okay? So I'm going to scoot this all the way down here, place it on the fold, and cut around it. We have our front, our back piece, and now let's set this aside and cut out our sleeve bands and neckband piece. So you can decide at this point if you're going to be using the same fabric, if it has that amount of stretch that we discussed in the previous video. I would stick to something that has at least a 5% spandex and good stretch recovery for the neckband, and the same applies for the sleeve bands. In this case, I'm going to be working with the same fabric, so I will grab that and cut out those pieces. Now for the sleeve band, make sure that you note where the grain line and the direction of greatest stretch are. Remember that I said the direction of greatest stretch runs along the crosswise grain, and that is perpendicular to the selvage edge. So here I have my selvage, and I haven't moved the fabric. I just opened up a scrap piece here. It's still oriented the same way that I had it before. Now we need to cut 2 of our sleeve band, okay? So if I can, because it's a simple shape, and I don't have to be super duper perfect with it, I'm going to see if I can cut out 2 at the same time. So first we orient the arrows in the proper grain lines the way that they need to go. This needs to be along the direction of greatest stretch, which needs to go like this because this is my stretchiest side, okay? So I'm going to line it up like this, and I can see that I can cut 2 of them out if I simply fold this little scrap piece of fabric over some, and you can see how much fabric you're still going to end up with. I like to conserve, so we're going to do this. Grain line runs parallel to the selvage edge, so we're going to place 1 there, smooth out my template here, and cut around it. So now I'm cutting around all 4 sides because remember, now I need 2 of these, and I'm cutting a mirror image again. Simple rectangle, I'm cutting through both layers, so I'll cut them both at the same time. All right, and there are my 2 sleeve band pieces, okay? So we're going to set those aside. And now let's cut out a 2-inch strip for our neckband. I'm going to do it out of the same fabric, okay? So for the strip of neckband, you'll see that on the pattern I say cut 1 strip 2 inches by 45, and the stretch should run lengthwise along the strip. Meaning that 45-inch length that I'm telling you to cut out should be along the direction of greatest stretch, which I know is perpendicular to the selvage. So if my selvage is down here, I need 45 inches or so. I mean, you could probably cut out 30, 35 and still have plenty. We're going to cut it down, but it needs to go this way. And I know that this little chunk from this scrap is not enough, okay? Now, here is my selvage edge, and I need to cut my band going that way. So I'm just going to turn it this way so that I can put my ruler where it needs to go. And I'm going to cut my strip for the neckband a little bit smaller than you will, or than what you already did based on what I told you on the pattern, because I've already made this shirt a million times, so I know exactly how much I'm going to need for my neckband. But in this case, I'm going to cut out a strip maybe at 27. So selvage is here, crosswise grain is running this way. And now I've already cleaned off this edge to give myself a nice straight line to cut and measure from. I'm going to place my ruler so that only 2 inches of the ruler are covering fabric from there to that edge. And that way I know that this is a 2-inch strip that I need. It keeps it nice and flat and keeps it from rolling. This ruler measures 24 inches. So I'm going to come a few more inches over. I know that I'm going to cut this down to size after I measure when I get to the neckband step. And I'm just going to go up one side, down this way. This is an easy way to get a nice, accurate 2-inch wide strip. All that is done. And I'm just going to flip my strip around and trim off that selvage edge for now. Okay? So I just want you to have a strip longer than what you'll need. When we get to that step, we'll go over what to do. So I have my neckband, I have my 2 sleeve bands, and I have my front and my back of my Westchester Dolman top. That's it. Those are all the pieces that you need to have cut out before we can move on to the sewing part. And that's it for this video tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning how to cut out your pattern pieces from your fabric so you can be ready to go when we get to the next video. If you enjoyed this one, go ahead and hit it with the thumbs up below, share it with your crafty friends, and if you like what you see, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to use the link in the description box below so you can get your pattern and any tools you might need, and I will see you in the next video.